Sitting at 51% on the tomato meter, Tron is a hit or miss movie for a lot of people. Now, one thing that is undeniable is it has incredible visuals and an even better soundtrack. Today, we're going to unbox, review, and compare the two vinyl releases of the TRON Legacy soundtrack for the 10th anniversary. Welcome to Popcorn and Vinyl, the show dedicated to films, film score, and vinyl. And today we're talking about a very exciting release, or two releases. Originally, this was only going to be a review of the TRON Legacy release by Mondo, but I was going to the post office to pick it up, and not 300 meters from the post office was a record store. So I thought I would go in and just see if they had any of the record store day releases of TRON. Sure enough, they actually had 3 copies. So I picked that up and I thought I would do a comparison of the two because, like a lot of people, I was kind of debating between which release to get. So I thought maybe this could be helpful to someone else and they could still choose which one to kind of seek in the aftermarket. I remember seeing the movie at the time when it came out in theaters and really leaving that movie. I kind of left with it being kind of like a meh film, like it was okay. Again, the visuals were absolutely stunning. The soundtrack was incredible. But the movie was just kind of ho-hum for me. And kind of looking back, I do think the visuals really do hold up really well. 10 years later, that CGI was really ahead of its time. One aspect that kind of does stand out a little bit is that de-aging of the Jeff Bridges character, which, they've done that de-aging technology since that time. The ones that come to mind are like X-Men: The Last Stand, or even a new one like The Irishman. They've come a long way, but there's still this like sort of 10% where your brain just kind of picks out some weirdness that stands out with that technology. So, it's come a long way, but it's just not quite there yet. But other than that, the rest of the CGI in the movie looks incredible. I think the performances in the film are quite good. It's just the story, like it's just okay. And I think, some people might be pretty passionate about this movie. Part of that is I've never seen the original movie, so I do not have a connection to that at all. For me, it's just that movie as is. I will say, upon a second viewing, I did enjoy it much more. And as for the soundtrack, now I have been listening to it on and off for the last 10 years, just, in digital format. And it's one of those, like, I've always really liked it, but I never bought it, and I don't know why. I actually don't know why I haven't listened to it more, because since playing it, like, it has become one of my favorites. Like, it really truly is a fantastic score, and I intend on playing it all the time here on in. Now, over that last decade, there have been numerous releases of the soundtrack, both on digital and physical formats. And all of those, there's been sort of various running times. Different releases have had different bonus tracks, so it's been hard to track down kind of a full version that has as much of the score material as possible. And these two releases do have a number of those bonus tracks. And from what I could tell, they both do have the exact same music. Now, I'm not sure if the mastering is the same on both, but the music itself appears to be the same. So let's get into the two releases. Now, I first came across this on the Record Store Day list for 2020. One of the drops did announce that they were going to do a TRON Legacy release, and that was one of the ones that actually jumped to mind as I thought I would actually get this one. It was very hard to find. I couldn't find it when I was looking on Record Store Day, that particular day. And then someone posted online that Mondo will actually be releasing one as well shortly. So I'm like, okay, great. I'll just wait for that one and hope I can get a copy of that, and I won't worry about the Record Store Day release version. And I just assumed the Mondo one would be better, just because of my track record of enjoying their releases so far. Now, I did read somewhere that it was advertised as limited to 1,000 copies, and I don't think that's the case, because if you just look at Discogs, over 1,100 people alone have this listed in their collection. When I went to that store, when I picked it up, there were 3 copies there. So, certain areas it might be hard to find, but there are copies out there. So I don't think you have to resort to crazy prices. I think if you look hard enough, you should be able to track down a copy of one of these. So let's get into these two releases, starting with the Record Store Day edition. Now again, it's not often that I double dip. In fact, this is my first double dip for a record. So this is unusual for me, but they both looked so appealing that I thought, why not in this case? So just looking at the Record Store Day edition one here, you know, it has a very plain cover, but that logo itself, like that typography, that design in its own, I think is pretty powerful. And I just really like this cover. Apparently this is glow in the dark, and I haven't really seen it glow in the dark all that much, but when I photograph it with like a flash or something like that, there is kind of like a nice glow to it. So it photographs really well, and it looks great. You know, simple, but a very nice design, I think. Now opening it up, looking into the double gatefold, here we see just a nice image, which is a still from the film of Daft Punk themselves, which, you know, this is a great choice to put in here. It ties in with the film, and it's interesting like how well this just fits into the aesthetic of the film. Like Daft Punk, like you could just plop them in the film and they just work there, which is such a great choice. Now, looking at the records themselves, these look fantastic. We get this translucent sort of aqua blue, and this is a beautiful record. Absolutely pristine. Again, just a nice, simple title, and just looks great. Both discs 1 and 2 are the same design, and they're just, they look awesome. It looks like there is one insert in here, and it's pretty simple. It just has some credits, some notes from some contributors, and I actually like this. It's not too crazy, but I like seeing the names of some of the musicians and the people involved. It's just kind of nice to give that credit and see the names of the people that did contribute aside from the main artist, because with a piece like this, so many people are involved. And what I didn't know is that like Hans Zimmer and Remote Control Productions were involved in the making of this, which is where they actually, I think, where they mixed the score. So I think there is some influence from some of the people from Hans Zimmer's sort of a wing of composers. And there's a number of people mentioned in the credits here. And apparently they did help with whether it's the orchestration or the mixing, and you could definitely hear that influence in some of the tracks. Now looking at the cover, it's nice and plain, and there is like nice sort of like embossed logo, so when you run your fingers over it, it does kind of pop out a little bit. It's a very simple design, but very nice. Now looking at the Mondo release, so I'm always excited to see these in the post office. Actually, when the lady went to get my package, I could actually see it like in the warehouse, and I'm like, yep, it's that thin one over there. And she's like, oh, how did you know? And were you expecting it? And I have been anticipating this for a long time. Very excited for this release. One thing that I didn't look carefully, I guess, when I was buying is the cover. Just as I'm opening it here, it's not what I expected. I thought it was going to be that sort of collage piece, but in fact it was that simple image of, that just had like the Flynn's logo as well as that arcade machine. And I've seen on social media people already opening up some of theirs. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's that arcade image that is that opening cover. And so that was kind of cool. But the other thing I didn't expect was that it was like a die-cut slipcase, and that interacted with that Matt Taylor work underneath. So when you do open it up, you know, you have that window from the arcade machine that actually looks into the artwork underneath. And I just thought that was an incredible choice. And I also like the simplicity of just that slipcase. We get that arcade machine, and you know, that's our sort of window into that digital world. You know, that's what takes us in there. So likewise with this music. So I just thought, as a symbolic choice, it was really effective, and just the imagery was it's very simple and effective, but just looks fantastic. Now opening up this now front cover that is Matt Taylor's work on the actual jacket itself, this thing is crazy stunning. The artwork here is incredible. Again, the cohesiveness of all the work is incredible, and it really, like, if you were to display what the movie is about in 12 by 12, like, that's what this record is. Everything you need to know about the film is in this 12 by 12 print. And again, this itself could be an art print. It looks so damn good, and just it captures elements of the entire film. You know, brilliant. I can't talk enough about how much I love this print here. This gatefold, wow. Like, this is absolutely unbelievable. What an incredible image. Daft Punk should get this commissioned in their house as a mural on their walls, because this is unbelievable looking. And what's great is how the artist's identity really blends into the aesthetic of the film and works so well, for this gatefold. And I think this is a much stronger image than the one utilized in the RSD edition. This image just screams imaginative science fiction. This is the type of character straight out of a George McFly novel. Not only is the artwork different, but the vinyl variant is different as well. So looking at this first record, wow, look at this thing. Like, this thing is gorgeous. You've got this beautiful, like, sort of blue triangle splatter effect. And again, I've come to accept that the discs will not always look like the image pictured. So for this one, like the Avengers one, this didn't look like the images pictured, but that's okay. I've sort of made peace with that, and now I have that expectation going in that it could be different. In this case, it's almost more opaque and less translucent than it looked, but still like a crazy, like, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous record if you're into that kind of thing. And then looking at the second one as well, we get this orange and black splash here. They all have names, I forget what they are, like a butterfly something, but great looking records. And it's so great that you are able to get both of these in one package. With so many labels, you actually have to choose like a different edition where, like, you'll get one of these records or one of these looks for both records that are pressed. And with that, some people get into the position of buying multiple versions because they want all those different variants, and it kind of can get out of hand. Like some records, like Stranger Things, for example, there's been so many different editions that, like, some people trying to collect them all end up getting a lot of the same record just because they're fans of that soundtrack and want all of them, but it just becomes too much at some point. So it's just nice when a label does offer that and gives you both, and it's just, it's a beautiful looking record and it's fun to have both, so why not? If you are all about the music black only vinyl edition, well, this year you're sort of out of luck, as both editions have been sort of funky colored versions. So you may be out of luck and you may have to track down an older original pressing if that is what you're looking for. Now this back cover too, wow, look at this thing. And at first, as I was opening this, I was thinking like, oh no, is this thing damaged? But it looks like it's kind of a two-tone texture between like a glossy and a matte, taking us back to the film where Sam wiped the dust off of the screen. This is kind of the effect that they're giving, and wow, was that ever brilliant. Like it's little details like this that make these pressings so unique, and they do so many clever things like this, kind of utilizing the limited tools that they have at their disposal. This is just such a cool choice, and wow, I'm blown away. At first I thought this was like a error in printing, but this is such a cool little detail. Now this has an insert as well, and again, it appears to be the same in content as the RSD edition, so just slightly different treatment, but same content and no other little kind of goodies inside. So we're at the point where I'm sure there's, tens of people screaming at their monitor, well, what about the music? Well, obviously that is why we're here, and at the most important part, the music itself. And this score is absolutely incredible. I'm almost ashamed to admit to myself, like, I can't believe I haven't been listening to this more over the years, because digging down into the review and really listening to these tracks, like, this is phenomenal. This will definitely be a regular staple on my sort of spin list. So the music is composed by Daft Punk, which is a French electronic duo. So they're known for a lot of like synth, electro, funk, pop, various remixes. They've been around for nearly 3 decades. I'm sure you have heard of them. But in the soundtrack world, of course, this is their first foray into a musical score for a film. And they, knocked it out of the park. It was absolutely phenomenal. And they were able to mix these two elements so well, this kind of classical orchestral mix along with that electronic and synth score. It really blended absolutely seamlessly, and it worked so well with the film. I found so often that the orchestral part really kind of highlighted the humanity of the characters, where we relied on that, heavy synth and electronic music portion to really highlight that digital world. and it just, you had that contrast work so well, but it blended together so seamlessly. And the one thing I like is, not only does it work so well in the movie, it works so well as an album by itself, as kind of a listenable piece. Because there's a lot of soundtracks out there that are great for the film, but outside of that, may not make for an enjoyable listening experience. There's classic scores that are incredible. But this, I could put this on anytime, and this is a great album to listen to. And I think this score might be a more sort of palatable gateway drug to other scores for some people, because film scores aren't for everybody, but because this does mix that electronic music genre into it, I think it'd get people just kind of a step closer to a more kind of orchestral score. And I would say TRON has probably had a pretty big impact on other films since that time, or other scores. I think there has been an influence on other soundtracks. When you look at something like Oblivion by M83 is a great example. I think there's strong influences from TRON on Oblivion. And obviously the subject matter, with it being kind of a science fiction film, there's that natural connection, but you definitely get that orchestral plus electronic music mixture that works so well in both films, and even thematically, and on the like certain motifs, like you just get that strong tie back to TRON. And Oblivion is one of my favorite soundtracks of the last decade or 2 decades. It's a great listen, and I think it strongly ties back to TRON. I think the electronic element gives a real sense of sort of like this kinetic energy and just atmosphere, with that orchestral piece really giving the emotional weight that some of those scenes needed. And as we begin the film, we do get that great overture, moving along to the grid with that great voiceover that is included. It pops out really nicely in the track. Like, his voice just like is on kind of another level from the music, and it just sounds really great, and his voice is so sort of hypnotic. But having said that, I still would prefer a track without that. I am kind of a purist, where I prefer just a clean track without any dialogue on any kind of soundtrack. The track Armory I really like, and to me there's kind of hints of like a Metal Gear Solid soundtrack there. There's actually a couple of tracks from Metal Gear that sound very similar to Armory, or at least remind me of. Now, I don't think that's an actual influence, but tracks like Adiago for TRON, have this operatic, larger-than-life feel. My favorite tracks are probably Armory, Solar Sailor, and Outlands. Sea of Simulation is another great track, and actually it sounds very similar to a recent theme song for a television series on Netflix. So Challenger, The Last Flight, that opening theme song has a very similar kind of sound to that Sea of Simulation. It has this kind of cosmic, emotional, just this kind of mysterious and hopeful, like there's kind of a lot of emotion in that track, and it balances really well. But definitely check out that theme song if you like this particular piece. NCOM Part 1 has this wonderful ostinato theme with just this great little piece, this motif repeated over, and it just sounds very wonderful. Now, if you were not able to get your hands on one, fear not. Mondo did say that in 2021 they would be doing a repress of it. So you can look forward to that. Keep an eye on their website. If this edition you like, they likely will change the vinyl variant, as they often do that with different represses, but I'm sure it'll still be the same artwork and overall package. So if you like that, stay tuned for that. If you prefer the RSD edition, there are still copies out there just in record stores that you can find. I think if you go to the Record Store Day website, they'll even show you where you can buy from stores that sell online. Rather than going to Discogs and getting from just sellers there, you might be able to get a better deal from the Record Store Day site, or just calling your record store and trying to get them to track down a copy for you. It might be a much more reasonable price. Now, with buying a second copy, for the price, if my wife is watching, I got an incredible deal. It was only $10. Okay, so it was like 52 American, or the equivalent of 52 American, which was a little steep, along with the shipping and duty and all that stuff on the one from the US for the Mondo Edition. So I think I own shares in Disney now between these two. So it is a little bit pricey, but these are both spectacular releases. Now, looking at comparing the two, pretty much everything comes down to subjectivity and your personal tastes. First of all, the music, I believe it is the same, it seems to have the same track listing for both. I haven't listened to see if the cues are all the same or the length of track is exactly the same, but I'm pretty sure it is the same. And even the quality of both pressings is excellent. I was a little bit concerned that the Mondo one would be a little bit noisy, as the last few pressings I've had from them, even with a good cleaning, have been a bit on the noisy side. But this one, it sounded great. Both of them sounded really good. Even with the translucent, I was a little bit concerned. But very clean sounding, very punchy bass, really great dynamic range across the board for all the records. So very pleased with that. When it comes to the vinyl variant itself, again, very subjective. Some people are not going to like this kind of splatter look. Other people, it'll be to die for. I think it looks fantastic. The translucent blue, damn, that looks super sharp. I didn't think I would like it as much, but it's a great looking record, and I don't have any that look like that. So it's a nice kind of standout piece in my collection. As for the artwork, very different. It's going to be on your personal taste. If you like that Matt Taylor style, that's the one to get. That is a frameable piece of art right there. Whereas if you prefer the simplicity of the regular Disney release, still nice. Where I would say the biggest difference is, it is actually in the jacket, and there's a sense of craftsmanship with the Mondo release that's not present in the regular Disney release. The cover feels more substantial, the cardboard feels better, even the inks look better on the Mondo one. They're both black covers, but the blacks look blacker on the slipcover for the Mondo edition. And just with the little details with that slipcover, with that kind of two-tone of the matte and the glossy, it's little things like that that I think add that extra special touch, and it just feels sort of better constructed, even opening up the jacket. It just felt nicer. Whereas the Disney one, it does have that nice embossing and that little kind of glow-in-the-dark feature, which it'll be very hard to tell for most people, but in some cases, it does pop out a little bit. So really it comes down to your personal preference. The most important thing, I think, is that the music sounds great on both. So it's going to come down to what visual style you like best. Now, if you are a purist and you prefer just that simple black vinyl, you're going to have to track down an old copy of one of those previous editions, and they're pretty hard to find and quite expensive. So that's one of the beauties of this, is hopefully this will bring down the price of some of those previous pressings on the resale market. Otherwise, just look forward to one of the represses by Mondo in the future, or just get this one. I think these both, are great choices, and depending on the style you're looking for, you've got some awesome options to choose from. I think if I had to choose one, I would absolutely go with the Mondo version. Again, that's that craftsmanship, that attention to detail. It's unlike the other pressing, but I would still be very happy if that was the only one that I had. So all in all, two great pressings, two great choices for you as a consumer. So I highly recommend tracking one of these down or waiting for that Mondo repress. This is a great one to have in your collection. Unless, of course, you're not as big on that electronic music side, that might sway you away from this pressing altogether. The movie itself, it's still okay. I'll probably give it another watch just to hear the soundtrack again, but the music on its own, it's just a fantastic listenable piece, and I highly recommend it. So thank you for watching this episode of Popcorn and Vinyl. Please give it a like if you liked it, and consider subscribing for videos like this in the future. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments about which one of these pressings either you own or would prefer to have. So love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next time.